What do we got
next?
All right, popping into this one. So this is an article from NPR that basically says 1 million fewer students are in college than last year, and looking at these super low enrollment numbers, which on its, I wanted to use as an excuse for all of us to just talk about the idea of like, is there going to be college in the future? But yeah, so that's the start.
All right, roll call. Who? What? Give your status. I dropped out with 1 term left. James,
I dropped out with less. I got 8 credits left to this day, which is less than a semester. So yeah.
Warren?
I graduated from the Harvard of the Southwest, Arizona State University, and which basically counts as dropping out in the last semester of another state school.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know about.
I'm like, obviously,
I didn't go to some great school.
I guess maybe not obviously. I feel like I have a very cliche outlook on college, which like there are.
What schools did y'all drop out of though? Like Wharton?
No.
No, so I dropped out of, to be really so interesting. I dropped out of Hunter, right? Just a perfectly fine, whatever.
But my mom, the Oberlin of New York.
My mom went to Harvard. My dad went to Yale, right? And so both my sisters had multiple
breeding stock
degrees.
ladies.
You fucked up.
My grandfather was trustee at Columbia Law School, like, and I was like, ha ha, schools for suckers. Like, I took a gap year first too. Actually, I took it after high school because I really. Shout out to moms. I almost didn't make it out of that one either. Almost didn't get that degree. And luckily, I tore a ligament in my foot. And not even kidding you, I had like a month left of school, and I owed 148 hours of gym or something. And I did the math, and I was got to be literally in gym class like 9 hours a day until the end. And I told my mom, and I was like, "I'm letting you know, Mom, if I don't graduate, I'm not doing a super senior. I'm not going back. I'm not doing that, right?" And then it was terrible at the time, but I got lucky. I was carrying an ex-girlfriend on my shoulders, fell, tore a ligament, and instead they asked me to write 2-page papers on anything to do with sports instead of 148 hours of gym. And that's the only way I graduated high school. So anyway, sorry, that was the anecdote.
Yeah, and so do you feel, do you think we should try to shoot for, maybe as part of the Tab Talk now, getting an honorarium for you from Hunter?
Bro, I have realized, so I had a moment.
Ceremony could be lit.
Dude, I had a moment in like 2020 when I thought I was like done with the entrepreneurial roller coaster, and I had and I made like 4 or 5 rounds of interviews at McKinsey for an associate partner role, and in the background check they were like, "Oh, what's your fill all the GDPR compliance stuff," and they're like, "Oh, don't worry, you're fine." Then I emailed them. I was like, "Just to let you know, my resume is not a lie. It says I went to Hunter College from this year to this year
and
for 4 years, and I did go to but it does not say Bachelor of the Arts, right? For a reason. It just says media major from this year to this year. But I didn't graduate, and they're like, "Oh, don't worry." I get a call back the next day, and they're like, "Oh, we can't take the regulatory risk or the legal risk on having someone on an AP level role not have a college degree." And being the spicy person I was like, "Listen, you tell me if Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg came in here and said they want to be an associate partner at McKinsey, you wouldn't open the doors. You'd be giving them the senior partner roles." And then the recruiter
Mark,
laughed.
and Bill.
Yeah. But anyway, I then was trying to figure out, could I go get my degree, blah, blah, blah. And then I really decided that the trick was just like to crush it so hard that they just give me that honorary. You know what I mean? And then I go laugh at Hunter because Yale's throwing me honoraries. You know what I mean? They're just like, boom, 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 what you need, baby. You know? Sorry.
And so, do you believe that? All right, so it's 1 million down. Do you believe that when, for Colin and I with the small kids, or for Jane, for your kids coming in the next year or so, do you think when they are going to college, the college will still be as important, or will still be around?
For me,
are we putting money in the college funds? You know what I mean?
So I'm putting money in my kids. I had a moment today where I was thinking about this, right? Where it's like marketing for specifically, right? Because I like to think of myself as a marketer at my core, and I like to think, and you guys are definitely like big chunks of you are marketers, right? Like if you ask me, I give you $200,000, okay, to go blow on learning marketing. Would I tell my kid, or entrepreneurship, would I tell my kid to go to college with my $200,000, or would I say go blow it learning to build something and go buy books and pay for mentors? Like, unequivocally, I don't know any great marketers that were like, dude, the marketing class I took in sophomore year of college like changed the way that I do.
Yeah, Professor Galloway just changed everything for me.
So probably my thought is, as long as my kid is like driving hard in doing something, I don't really care what they do. College is pretty irrelevant to me, candidly, right? So I think that the numbers are going to keep going down. I come from a pretty well-educated family, so I don't want to knock on them, but like I think that education, unless you go into a specific field where you need where you're a lawyer, right, you have to pass a bar, or a doctor, you have to have a medical, be an MD. Like that I don't know what these Bachelor of Arts degrees, I think they're just worthless for 99% of people and end up in debt because of it.
I completely agree. I think that there is pretty much no way that college as we know it exists in 15 years, at least not in a recognizable way. And no college fund.
Oh,
it's funny because looking at the statistics of this dropped down to 1 million, but we're still up even after that drop, like 1.5 million people from where we were in the 90s, and like 2.5 million from every year in the 80s. So it was so many additional people have been going to college because it's like, of course you're going to go to college
because it's a given
way to those jobs.
Right.
And so I think it will probably fall back to maybe like those 2000s numbers. I think it will still be a major thing. And I would say that like, because you guys didn't finish off, but like it didn't matter to me whether I finished off or not. Like that last year I essentially checked out anyway. But like, yeah, so the degree itself didn't make a difference for any of us. Like I've never had a resume where I've like put my college on it, if I've even used a resume since maybe once since I graduated. Like, and but I do think that experience, like as a more introverted person, especially as someone coming from Hawaii to like the mainland, like I needed those couple years to just like be in the mix because I didn't know what I wanted to do or what business. And like looking back on it, if I'd known some of what I did in those couple of years, like first, like there was like a 5-year combined business MBA program that like one of my friends knew he was going to do and like finished, and he came out in like 5 years was a CPA and like making 180 grand or something.
Sure.
I was like, this guy has this shit figured out. Like I'm in graphic design,
Yeah, no.
But it's like if you would like have that kind of level of planning, I think it's useful. But I think it'll just kind of fall a little bit, but we're still going to see it as primarily. I'm maxing out the 529. So if you do the math, you've got to put like $800 a month in the fucking 529 from when your kid is born to get to the compounding that's going to get you to that 200 grand or whatever it is. I'm sure you'll have extra if you do that much or whatever it is, but like that tax-free money, you know what I mean? I'm better off do that to be like, oh, guess what? My kids want to go to college. I got to get 40K after tax out, this year. It's like,
I mean, my thoughts are this, is that like college, I'm glad I went to college. Like, I don't think it was a waste for me. I needed that transition in life. I was a little derelict growing up. I, got a lot of trouble, and like it was part of that transition process into growing up for me. I do think that for a lot of people, and I grew up like, very well-connected middle-class kid in New York City. I think that if I'd come from a different background, that like a college education may have been like game-changing for me, right? Like I happen to already come from the network, just from where I grew up. Like I knew kids whose dads owned investment banks, right? Like I'm just like that's just like luck of the draw. So I think that it's important for some people, and it's almost like a trope at this point. But as I sit here in my apartment that had a leak for 3 weeks from the ceiling and we couldn't get enough contractors in here to fix it, like really, really, really clearly, like people should be going to trade schools and stuff, right? Like,
exactly.
Electricians can make $170 an hour, that's what we should be going to do.
I think that like, that's what I mean by like, it will not look at
evolve
all
into
the
more
same.
trade focus or something.
Yeah, I think both trade and then like professional, like James mentioned in terms of whether it's a lawyer or a dentist or a doctor, but especially trades.
And that's interesting because I always think I talk about Alibaba a lot, and the whole idea.
It's a great moment, I think, to talk about. Or do you want to tell? Do you want to tell more about what happened?
We've got a pending ebook at 5,000 followers, so you guys know. Phone alert. But as being like a portal to all these manufacturing jobs that are in China, like basically this giant company took advantage of this niche to be able to connect overseas, companies to this global supply chain. But in America, that doesn't really exist. You basically have to like hunt through to find like a machine shop's website, which has like poor SEO and there's no directory of, and like the guys may even not even have a website, but they specialize in whatever unique, like they've got 4D CNC machines and whatever. And it's like, if there is some enabling technology, a layer to which with the ambition level of what Alibaba has that is covering the United States manufacturing base, whether that is, and also just in like the hand labor base, right, of like electricians, masons, any of that, and then the pipeline that feeds it from school with the guaranteed job amounts, because all everyone really wants is a guaranteed job from between like $85,000 and $110,000, and there's a grip of those out there with 2 years of technical training. It's just like not regarded in what people are thinking they want to do, and so I think we just need to figure that out, because everything else, like all these digital jobs or training people to be digital, be coders, all that shit is going to be overseas. All these Eastern Bloc guys are going to be better than the best US engineers. It's like it's just fair.
Yeah. I think also when you look at sort of coding as an export, forget even just the Eastern Bloc, like when we go to like much more developing countries, right, like in Southeast Asia and Africa, I think that once you can start getting young kids more hands-on technology, like if their export is code, I don't know why some kid in West Africa couldn't produce code at hundreds of the price of some kid
we see
in
this
New
on
York
Upwork
City,
every
right?
day. Like, I don't care where you're from. You know, like I'm looking at that resume, and if you have 100% satisfaction rate, and like plug it in, brother. You know, like
Yeah. And in fact, there's more disparity. Like if you have 100% satisfaction rate, and you are in, there's someone I hired actually for something that's $85 an hour, and she's not in the U.S. And her U.S. counterparts are like $150 an hour. But there was also other people I saw for $25 an hour. So this is like a weird sort of pricing structure thing where I'm like, okay, I want to pay above the average, like way above her competitor rate in her country, right? Because all of a sudden I think that now she's a higher tier, but it still is coming in significantly less than sort of what I'd be paying an American for. I don't want to open up the floodgates and talking about what happened to Nick Huber recently. I don't know if you guys saw that, right? About he was tweeting about hiring people.
Look, so that's what you get for, and he was fighting back. He was saying, look, I am doing these Filipino folks who are paid $5 an hour a favor, and
I think it's tough. I mean, I listen. I don't want to get in a thing about it. But I remember one of the papers I wrote in college, be relatively contrarian, was about sweatshops.
My God, you're dropping
like,
big theses. Yeah.
And net good. Like sweatshops in certain places are net good. Not sweatshops per se, but like factories, right? Sort of factories where like if there had not been a factory before, people had no food and no water and were living under dirt ground, right? And now all of a sudden something comes in. So there's obviously a middle ground to find. Right, but
and honestly, the main problem isn't the $5 employee over there. It's the way that he parades it and the attitude with which it's treated is just so uniquely like guy on the internet who doesn't understand how the world perceives anything, and it's rough.
Well, I think it's also like intentionally, like he was going for that, right? He wouldn't have done that if he wasn't.
I think
I'm
it's
sure
a
it
little
gets
polarizing
ugly,
purpose.
and then you start regretting it. But like, there's no way he wasn't going for that.
Yeah. I mean, you think
What's the next? Go.
No, I was gonna say I think it's tough when you're doing this personal brand marketing perspective stuff, where like you're trying to grow an audience, and like candidly, like one of the most important things is just to be like pretty polarizing, I think, and to say things that like make a clear statement about how one thing is and that other people disagree with, and on purpose. You get rid of
Colin
people
could have chosen a
disagree with.
photo where he wasn't in those shorts.
Yeah,
But he knows it wouldn't have popped. Which wouldn't have done the same numbers.
the big white boy fit. Yep,
The big white boy fit. All right, on to